Hey, loves, it's Dr. Simone Ellis with Beyond the Chair podcast. And some things are just meant to be. There has been a really, really amazing doctor in my life who I've known for several years and I consider a mentor. And wouldn't it be amazing to find out that my next guest is actually her brother? And I didn't know this. So this has been a wild ride. I'm super excited. This is how social media is so impactful. I want to introduce you guys to Coach Kevin Thibodeaux. Kev, what is good?
Thank you. Glad to be here. Small world, no doubt.
Small world. So you send me a message on Instagram like, hey, by the way, do you know my sister? And I'm like, Mel? Mel is also a dentist who, again, like I said, from a mentorship standpoint, I've had dinners with Mel. We've talked about business and strategy, and you were already, I think, slated to even do the show, or were you already slated to do the show before I even figured out that was your sister?
I believe so. I think I recognized, given your profession, said, hey, you might know my sister because you guys are in the same field. And that's kind of how we recognize the connection.
It really is 7 degrees of separation. I mean, on a serious note, it's like wild. So thank you so much for blessing us with your presence today. And I kind of want to go ahead and talk to everybody about today's topic, which is the ripple effect. How empathy transforms relationships and the work-life harmony. As you know, this show is really about what you do beyond the chair. And I think interpersonal relationships, as well as how we interact with people, relationships, personal and professional, matter. And Coach Kev has all the answers that we're going to get into today. Kevin, tell me a little bit about your journey, what you do for a living, and how did you arrive to doing that?
Sure, happy to. So, Coach Kev, I'm presently a dating and relationship coach.
Oh, you
And what
must
that
be
means,
rich right now because like the dating world is trash. Like it is horrible.
yeah, I hear that a lot. Definitely, business is it's steady. Um, there's a lot of opportunity there, and as you can imagine, people want to have better relationships, better dating lives, better experiences, better outcomes, and achieve goals or overcome obstacles. So that's typically what I do as a coach. Is I partner with my clients to recognize where they are and then where they want to be, and then in effect put a plan together and hold them accountable, help them get unstuck, help them see new perspectives, but also champion them and acknowledge their success in reaching their goals.
And you started this because as I read your bio, you didn't really take dating or relationships really seriously until like late into your 30s. Talk about that because you're an attractive guy, right? So I'm sure the ladies were coming at you left and right. And was you just like in the streets like this, or it just wasn't a focus?
Wasn't a focus, to be truly transparent. I appreciate the compliment. However, I focused on career and business. And in the process of becoming a coach, you start to learn that thoughts and ideas may not be serving us well. So with that idea of, I had the idea rather that I needed to focus on financial stability. So finances or money was tight in our household growing up. I saw the implications, and my parents are still married 52 years, but we weren't just, George and Wheezy or the Huxtables at this point. So, I've recognized that, boy, for me to have a family and be successful in that domain, I need to go out and be financially stable. So focused on career, got an engineering degree, started working, got an MBA, and continued to make the business and career thing happen. And then you kind of wake up mid 30s and say, wait, what's going on? I haven't gotten married. I haven't settled down. Just thought it would happen without any intent on trying to better myself and being able to do two things at once.
Yeah.
I was very myopic. So went on dates, but was afraid to be vulnerable, was afraid to focus on that, given I needed to, like I said, get the financial house in order. At least I thought so at the time.
So what changed? Like, what was the trigger point where you're just like, hey, like, I'm popping on the streets. I'm having dates. I don't have a problem with like getting
Right.
dates, but like life is kind of different.
Yeah. Well, what changed, speaking of my sister, was she got married and she's significantly, I mean, not significantly younger than me, but younger than me. But also recognizing that, I had a coach and a therapist at the time, and recognizing that, boy, I'm going to be alone if I don't start to multitask, if you will, focus on career or sustain career at that point, and focus on me being better
Mm.
to be a better person to show up for dating and relationships, and not wanting to be alone. I mean, that desire was there for me, and wanting to have a family as well, and figuring I'd laid the groundwork, so my plan was working. But now it's like trying to do it in series, and you want it to happen when you want it to happen. And as we know, sometimes things don't
The
manifest as you
universe
would
does
like them
not
to
work
happen.
like that, right?
Right, right. So, yeah, recognized. But at the time, I did meet someone, and we went through the premarital classes, and I mean, you talk about a lot of growth at that point from
Mm.
a human being standpoint, from a potential partner, it's just as a man, and then potential father. So, learned a lot, and didn't get married at that point in time, but that kind of set the journey for where we are today. Meaning, at that point, I recognized if I focused as much on my career and businesses, um, my personal development and well-being for relationships, then I could be successful. And at some point, I decided, you know what, I'm going to retire from what I used to do in a traditional sense and start to help others learn from my experience, but also, help them on their journeys.
Yeah, it's amazing how, especially as our parents, like we mimic, we're some of our historical experiences, right? And as our
Right.
parents, especially growing up in African American household, I don't know about you, but I'm like the second generation out from college education, and work ethic was totally like you grind. So I also very much so similar in that experience where I was going to be a workaholic. And the difference for my journey was is that I got married really early on. I found my ex-husband in college, and I really went to college not to do any of that. I was like, I'm going to be the Ebony Bachelorette or the Essence Bachelorette, and I am going to become a doctor, and I'm crushing it. And I found my ex-husband there and
Okay.
got married really young. I say 25 because I'm like, I was with him at 18, got married at 25, and I'm 40 now. I just turned 40. We both have just we're sharing birthdays, these decade birthdays, and you realize how different of a human you were, and just young, but I also was very career focused, which I think to some degree led to the demise of several things led to the demise, but that was one of the things that I really did not have a balance on. So this episode I'm excited about because I had to learn a lot on the journey, and I think this service is such a needed thing because we don't talk about that, right? Like we have a big emphasis on getting that professional degree. My mother was like, "You go and you focus and become a career woman." But in the same aspects, like where's the family going to come to play if you want that, right? Where's the kids going
Right.
to come to play if you want that? And
Correct.
had no idea of can you have both? Can they exist together? And so I'm super excited to kind of dive a little deep before we get into all the questions. I love to kind of always have this part of the episode of what you drinking. And this part of the episode is just to talk about what do you do to decompress after a long day. And especially because you absorb energies of so many people and you're talking to people, you pour into people. What is it that you do to pour back into yourself or decompress? And it doesn't have to be alcohol, it could be anything, but what do
Right.
you do?
I do a mix of everything. So, I'm presently in Los Angeles now, and after 27 years in Houston, and I go back and forth because I have a home in Houston as well. But in LA, I tend to take advantage of the weather we have. So,
Yeah, you got
some
you got
hiking,
bomb weather over there. That's
yeah, some outdoor activities, but I do work out pretty frequently. I meditate twice a day. I do a lot of the, mind, body, spirit, total deal. But you're right, meeting with clients, you're taking in a lot.
yeah.
But I drink occasionally, and then, we have, just like I don't know, Texas. I don't know what the cannabis laws are
I was just
now,
about to
but
say, do you partake in the
Of course,
The
I think
high
in
life.
partake in cannabis. Yeah, I have cannabis interests. I own some cannabis part owners and some assets. So yeah, I'm not a big user of anything per se. I don't drink enough, probably is what I tell people. I don't do cannabis enough. I
Yeah.
probably could do a lot more. But I like tequila. I like a good whiskey or old fashioned. It's really my libation of choice lately. So,
Nice, nice.
getting out with friends, more of a social.
Okay.
Or with the sister and the family, we'll have a cocktail to celebrate birthdays and life in general.
So what I'm drinking right now is not alcohol at all. I have really gotten into skincare because
Okay,
as my skin is
nice.
right, I want to make sure it's nice, right? So what I've
All
been
right.
doing to decompress has been really cool is I have gotten obsessed with like facial products. So I go
Mm,
home, I steam my face, I'll put a mask on, and it's
good.
really kind of like just getting back into me. It's like I get a chance to have my skin be the way it is, and I've been finding a lot of fun in that. So whatever it takes to decompress, people already know I work out. I've already done 2 workouts today. My calorie goal has been met. I did that by 8 o'clock, so I'm proud of myself because I killed it at 4:30, and then I killed it again at 5:30. So
Wow.
I'm a
Impressive. Impressive. I want to be like you when I grow up. I
listen. I'm
mean,
just trying to. I'm trying to be better every single day. Listen, I'm trying to be the Angela Bassett at 45. That's my goal. So she's older than me, but I want to look like her.
hmm I've seen her a few times in person, and let me tell you, I'm impressed every time to
I
know
mean,
her age
she's
and
she's
witness.
goals, right?
Yeah,
Like,
amazing.
yeah.
It's amazing.
So well, let's talk a little bit about empathy and as a relationship coach, as a person who is really probably getting an opportunity to understand that emotional wheel, which I didn't even know exists, but there's a whole emotional wheel with all these different emotions on there. What does empathy mean to you, and how do you see it influencing people in their professional and their personal relationships?
Yeah. Very good question and a worthy topic. Empathy has been, discussed a lot because of um, behaviors that exist out there that prey on people that may be empathetic or empaths. But
Mm,
our case now, I think it's the ability to, really understand and share the feelings and perspectives of others. Um, we tend to say putting ourselves in their shoes, right, to see it from their perspective and eyes, and ultimately respond, to them with compassion and understanding once you're able to do that. And that can be very important, especially in our personal relationships, be it in the business domain or the romantic domain, because it helps us to foster, deeper connections, a level of trust between
mm.
people. And I think in this day and age, as we talk about diversity, understanding the perspective of diverse communities really helps us to connect even deeper and support them, right? So
Yeah.
that's the importance.
Yeah, I wonder what are your thoughts about, especially pertaining to the pandemic or social media and its impact on, empathy. For me, I feel like it's been brought to more awareness, but
Mm-hmm.
I find it in the Western world. I see that people aren't as empathetic as maybe they should be. And so maybe that's just my own personal take where when I go over to the Western side of the world and culturally there's a lot more different love and like just thought process about people, it seems to be over here, especially in our country, that people have become more self-centered. They're aware of empathy. You hear people talking about vulnerability. I don't know if it's really that's the thing. So, coach, tell me, like, what are your thoughts about that?
Yeah, good points. I think in our current society, right, we have this go get it mentality in that, everybody can pull themselves up by the bootstraps, right?
Mm,
And sounds great in theory, but not practical, not true. I mean, situations for individuals can be different. The intersectionalities that come with our culture. So, what's tough for someone may not be tough for someone else. That exists as well. So there's a lot of things at play here, and so empathy is important to try to see from everyone's perspectives what's ahead of them, what they're going through, what they're feeling, and then being able to connect and understand. And um, our country as a whole has a history of trying to forget about things, right? If you
yeah,
know what I mean. Like,
yeah.
hey, we're going to ignore that. That didn't
That
exist.
didn't
We shouldn't have.
happen. What do you mean?
Things have changed. Everybody's on the same playing field. And so that makes it tough. That makes it tough to be empathetic, and our society as a whole is not empathetic at times for a lot of things that are happening for a lot of different people. I mean, we
Yeah.
see here in LA, and I'm sure in Houston, which has been doing well on the unhoused or the homeless situation, right? It's exacerbated here in the California
Yeah.
in the state
Yeah.
of California, and people start out empathetic, for example, and then it wanes over time because it's pervasive. They see it all the time, and they tend to not feel the same way over time. It kind of lessens, if that makes sense, right?
Yeah,
So
and I wonder like what do you feel like people's responsibilities like are to the empathy, right? Because I can understand people being empathetic for a reason and then becoming desensitized to it. So,
mhm.
but what do you feel like as far as people like how quickly should they lose empathy? And then my other question to you is that the importance of historical data, right? Understanding people's history. You were talking about our history, not forgetting the history, but also understanding how you grew up and how you were raised. How do all of these play a part into a person being empathetic or empath?
Right. Yeah, I don't think there's a formula as to, how soon should it wane, or,
Mm,
for some people it weighs on them a lot longer, and they're definitely more concerned and trying to figure out what they can do to help, or support, if you will. For others, I mean, it comes and goes. Life is tough for
yeah.
a lot of, human beings, right? You're still human no matter what situation you're in, and you're dealing with all the things that come with life. So at times we tend to lose that perspective about the other person because what about me? Like, I'm
Mm,
dealing with it, maybe not in that fashion, but so if I'm looking out for you and you and you, at what point do I? So that's always at play as well. Um, but you mentioned also the historical aspect. Yeah, there's a lot. I mean, I think in conversing with friends and family and others, we debate that a lot because without an understanding of historical events or history in general and how things really are, then you can lose sight of what's at play now. Because I think, for example, my sister will always remind me, people come to this country and they become citizens and they learn our history, and to some degree, there's a lot to our history, right?
yeah.
And how they take that in and how it's perceived impacts how they view certain people in our country,
Mm,
right? And that's, and so without, you know, a real accurate understanding of the history and what it means and the effects of, things that have occurred in this country, then it can definitely be distorted into how you perceive things, hence the empathy for certain situations and peoples,
yeah,
right?
I couldn't agree more with that. And just on a previous podcast, we were talking about travel, the one I just recorded right before yours. And
Okay.
um, one of the things that has really transformed me in understanding people historically or and asking more introspective questions to people as opposed to saying what's right, what's wrong, this is the right thought process or not, was travel. And travel has opened up for me so many questions about even what is history being taught, and how that has impacted my thought process moving forward, right? And went to Spain, got an opportunity to visit kind of close to where the Moors were staying, and then hearing the impact of Christian crusades. And I remember turning to my husband and going, that is not how I remember that story. That's not how I learned that. And then this whole thing, I mean, it has been a spiral in my 40th year of like, wait, so what am I being taught and how am I being taught it? And what it did was it started to open my mind up to, could you be learning history that's not really like correct? Whose history is it? How is it being taught? And furthermore, back onto the subject matter, what I've always said is that travel, especially when I'm learning and experiencing things, I have a deeper understanding of people. And when you do travel and when you have the opportunity to learn and listen and pay attention, compassion comes with empathy. It's able to build. And I come back to the States, and I'm a completely different human every single time. I'm more well-rounded. I understand more. I have more patience. I'm an empath naturally, and so I can walk into a room. Even my counselor, this is hilarious. She goes, I could tell she was having a bad day when she walked by my car. And I said, hey, is everything okay? And, I'm not supposed to know the counselor's business. She's supposed to know mine, right? And she was like, how do you do that? And I was like, I just feel it. Like it is something that I've always been able to do. And by doing that, learning, having these experiences, I really feel like it helps, influence how I handle personal and professional relationships, because I'm asking the questions. I'm now questioning the history that I've been taught, and I hope others would start to do that, like these misconceived notions about people based off of color or skin, or these misperceived notions about the gender based off of what your sexuality is, or even like woman versus men, female. We were just talking about age and how it's different for women versus men. If we could kind of get out of our heads about a lot of those things, I wonder how much more empathetic we could be towards people. I'm curious to know, how do you think that empathy enhances, our understanding and fostering, great sense of connection with people?
Yeah. Well, first of all, thank you for sharing that, though. That's a lot of self-awareness and recognizing with your experiences and
I mean,
your
listen,
gifts.
I do the
Yeah,
work. I do the
you do the
work.
work.
Okay.
Hey, we're impressed. We're impressed. I mean, you sound like you could be the coach, no doubt about it.
No,
So
no,
that's
no,
good
no,
stuff.
no. Like dating is like I fail all the time. So go ahead, continue.
Not as hard as you think. Not as hard as you think. Trust me. But back to your question about how it. Let me make sure I got it right. You wanted to know how it helps us in the. Say
Connection.
it
Like,
again,
how
right?
does it enhance our
Connect.
connection with others and foster, like a sense of connection? We're in a space now where we're creating more opportunities to be disconnected. And so, how does empathy really help with us building connection?
Yeah. If you think about it, fundamentally, I mean, some of the things we've recently, witnessed from, Black Lives Matter, just the thought of that slogan, matter. I mean, people want to be seen, people want to be heard, people want to matter. And, to connect with folks in an empathetic manner is to, like I said before with the definition of putting yourself in their shoes, I mean, it really starts to signify, at least give the indication that, hey, you do matter. I want to understand your perspective. I want to understand what it feels like to be in your shoes and what things move you, what things matter to you. Um, and so that's a level of I think allowing the connection to be authentic. That level of perspective or seeing it from their shoes makes it so much easier to support.
Yeah.
Because if you don't have the awareness, if you will, that level of awareness, then it can be very hard. You're like, okay, what are they talking about? What's the big deal?
Yeah. And I
You
think if
know,
we could stop approaching conversations from the perspective
right.
of like, I mean, the openness of having a conversation with someone, like, like
Yeah,
I'm not here to see if you're right or wrong. I'm actually just
right.
open to hearing what you have to say.
Yeah. And we see it in the workplace too.
Yeah.
I think in a lot of, prior to becoming a coach, I was a consultant in corporate America and did a lot of change management and still do some change management work. And that's helping clients implement projects and, these projects can be large and transformational, and it affects the people. And the people sometimes are often overlooked as to, we know we got this new strategy or this new product or technology, or we're going to change the organization, but there's a lack of consideration, if not empathy, for the people involved, because you're disrupting, their lives and their day to day and in the work environment. But trying to understand, okay, how can we help them to exist in this new future state that we're bringing about with the change.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the empathy and that's needed sometimes in corporate America.
Can you teach people to be empathetic?
Is it too what?
Can you teach people to be empathetic? Like, is that
Can
a
you teach
learned trait? Are
people to
you
be
born?
empathetic?
Okay.
Yes, no doubt. I truly attest and have affirm that because part of my coaching certification and training um, is to be empathetic. Typically, in a coaching environment, you have to be present. You have to listen And most clients are coming distressed. They're coming with a challenge. They're coming with a problem. So before you start, getting into the coaching aspect, there's a human connection, and you tend to want to, you know, feel what they're feeling and, understand what they're going through. So if they're going through a breakup, breakups can be devastating. Um, so I typically, whatever the session is, I try to relate and connect and say, I can only imagine what it feels like, or it must, feel like this. And that kind of, helps the connection right there from the jump, in sensing what they're going through. And then from that lens, having the coaching session. So, in the coaching training, for example, I'll speak for men. It can be hard for us sometimes to we want to jump in and solve, want to jump in and let's put the plan together, right? But taking a breath and learning some empathetic traits, or expressing empathy in a session like that, it can be paramount.
Why do you think that men have that struggle with empathy? Do you feel like, and do you feel like that's a cultural thing? Do you feel like it's men across the board? Like, why do you feel like men tend to be either stereotyped or actually a reality of not having the same empathetic side that maybe women do?
Yeah, good question. There's a lot of factors potentially, but I can throw out a few perspectives, at least from what I think. I think, and even from my own perspective, we're taught to suppress our emotions. I think society kind of drives us in that fashion. Like, you got to be strong, you got to be hard, you can't show emotions. So a lot of us don't know the emotional spectrum, if you will, and then the range within a particular emotion. And we're not innately probably nurturers. Some may be, but on the whole, I haven't found a lot of men that are just nurturing out the gate, possibly. And we tend to be more logical in nature as opposed to emotionally driven. A lot of us, not
Yeah.
all. I don't want to make it any absolutes
There's no
here.
absolutes.
But
Yeah, we get
yeah,
it.
no
No.
absolutes. Because somebody might say, well, Kev, how do you, but in general, and speaking as a man and from my perspective, no doubt, this is my perspective on this. But ultimately those things compounded with you know, showing that for us it's perceived weakness sometimes to be
Yeah.
emotional or be so empathetic, right? To it's just like, all right, what are you saying, right?
Yeah, and
So
I see sometimes guys will take it as like, an offense, and it's like, whoa, wait a minute, like we're just talking about feelings here. Like, there's no attack here. It's just really trying to
right.
get you to understand, the side. And I think also too, you start off with a disadvantage, like you said, like. Men are not taught to be emotional. If anything, you see girls getting around, playing with Barbie dolls, and
Right.
like having all the feelings and talk about how you feel, and what does that feel like, where men are like really taught, like, go play with those toys, and if you cry, like, suck it up. Like, I mean, like, from the get, it's like, man up. And we're seeing this impact now where people are so disconnected because they don't even know how to connect, but they're not even raised in that space of connection, right? At least that's what my thoughts are, but I'm just a dentist, not a guru. Kind of,
Yeah.
I don't know what your thoughts are.
But you're allowed to have a perspective, and that makes sense. Right. And then, you grow up, right? You
Yeah.
become a partner in a relationship, or you date, and then you start to see the challenges by not being able to emote, by not being able to, express yourself, or even, empathize with your partner and what they're experiencing as a result of dating you. So it just compounds, and, you kind of have to go through it. And that's where the journey of trying to learn and discover what are my obstacles, what are my challenges as an individual, as a man, as a human being, and then working on that. And is that preventing me from having the relationship or the fulfilling love that I hope to have, and then starting to address it. So
Yeah, what are like
that's
2 or 3 tips that you could give to someone who is struggling with even creating empathy? Like, if I wanted to seek out your services, right? Like, that's one thing. Like, but
yeah.
like, what are some of the things that you would say, okay, to my clients, these are 2 of the things that are non-negotiable, that if you want to become a more empathetic person, to increase your connection from a personal and professional, I would recommend doing these 2 things.
Yeah, well, one is, seeking out a coach or a therapist. Let's just start there. I mean, we can help figure out, what it is you want to achieve or what difficulty you have in expressing empathy. So that kind of helps you, put together a plan. But ideally, if you wanted to, focus on your own, it's just, as you go about your daily life, looking for opportunities to take on a different perspective from someone else's, shoes, if you will, putting yourself in their shoes and trying to understand. So what it must be like to be this person, to be, a woman in this situation, or to be a Native American in this situation. So as things come about, shows you watch on TV, I mean, that's what it is. It's stimulating us to take on these new perspectives, but really start to, give yourself some space and some time to think about what that really must feel like, or to be in a situation that's unlike your own. Uh, so that's that practice. But yeah, talk to a coach. We'll help you try on different hats and different perspectives, but you can do it for yourself, and that'll start to give you some hopefully understanding, and talking about it and really processing it a little bit better would help you to develop that empathetic muscle, if you will.
Yeah, I feel like for some people it comes really natural, and then others it's a lot more, effort. And even for
Right.
people who it does come natural, like I said, I know for sure I'm an empath. I
Okay.
still make sure that I didn't realize how important quiet time was for me to understand things that were going on in my thoughts, and how I could,
Mhm.
um, you know, taking the permission to say I deserve to have time to like just sit and be quiet and not stimulate it. And I'm not talking about quiet time with like Netflix going or my phone going on. I'm like real quiet time, so you have the opportunity to be introspective. When people are struggling with different areas of their life, I think that they forget that the importance of that quiet time to actually silence the noise, so you can see where maybe the struggles are in your life, are so important. And so like now I demand it of myself, because at first I felt ashamed to even say I needed quiet time. And now it's like a non-negotiable for myself. I give myself permission to have quiet time. I give myself permission to have quiet trips. Like I will now take a weekend to be like, I don't want to deal with nobody, like, because it allows me to connect differently with people. When I come back, I can hear myself. I think we're so busy that we're wondering why we're not connecting, or why we're missing people left and right. And we're not even getting a chance to look at maybe why we're not, right? And when you're tired and you're exhausted and you're frustrated, right? Your ability to connect to people comes from all of that tired and frustration, where you lack empathy because you're exhausted. That quiet time has been, I don't know, for me, like transformative. And giving myself permission to say that I deserve to be quiet is wild. I almost felt ashamed about it. What are your thoughts about that?
Well, one, I want to, applaud you and acknowledge the fact that you're giving yourself permission and recognizing, the value of having that space and that time for yourself. So that's great. I think it is important, and I encourage it for a lot of folks, and it, works for folks to have that space, because I think our culture is so busy and we're always on the go, and it's so instantaneous. Everybody wants things now and fast, and it's kind of counterintuitive to just slow down and stop
You almost
and have
feel you almost feel guilty for
yeah.
wanting to slow down, right?
But the benefits, I mean, I think it allows you to, like you said, have the ability and the awareness. It is helping to build some self-awareness. I mean, you can become more aware of, yourself and how you're feeling and what you're going through, but also with um, that ability, I think it, leads to the topic itself, and being able to, that ripple effect. It can help with others and connecting, and because we're on the go, and I think we see it. I mean, it's hard to connect with friends and everybody else, because everybody's hustling, everybody's doing their thing, right? And it's tough to see what they're going through at times, and you try to connect, and then even social media somehow, I think, has diminished the ability to really connect at times. We just see the what they present, or
Oh,
what the facade is.
absolutely. Like we get this,
No
you get
doubt.
in the highlight reel. Like, I mean, why? I don't have problems. You can see the best
Yeah.
parts of my life.
Boy,
Like,
every time I see Dr. Ellis, she partying. She doing
oh,
best life. I mean,
that's true,
she got
guys.
it made. She
That's
got it made.
Well, I don't have it made, but I definitely am partying. Like, and I'm asleep. If you don't see me on social, I'm either like out of the country or I'm asleep. That is
Right.
fact. But
But real talk, you're
yeah,
having the time for your, you having that space, you having the time.
yeah.
It's not like you're not, having, things to handle and difficulty at times. And, but that helps you to have your best life when you take the time for yourself.
Oh yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And I think that as people continue to learn more about themselves and become more introspective, you are able to be, better for so many people. Like, and that's where
Great.
again, I'm like, even a tip that I'm using right now is that I have a screen timer on my phone because I'm like that
Mhm.
disconnection part. Especially for providers or doctors or healthcare people who are all like, there's so many different platforms. When Threads came out, I was like, are we serious? Like, is that a thing right now? Like, how many
Right.
more ways for me to be connectedly not connected? Like, I don't know if that makes sense. Like,
No.
what's another platform for me to figure out how to connect to people that I'm not connected to? And you feel overwhelmed by it. And so I had to learn myself to say, you're getting consumed by this. And there's a level, I know we're kind of going off topic a little bit, but like there's a level of accountability that I had to have to myself to say, yeah, girl, like an hour is good a day. You respond, you can engage with your community. But this rest of this 24 hours, like, or this 23 hours, like, we not doing that. And that was something that I made as a decision to me because I do want to have the connections with people. And to me, sometimes those connections are not just on social, it's in person. Like I want to be present. So
Makes, makes sense.
yeah.
And then, we spoke about, birthdays earlier in each passing decade, but
Yeah.
what you thought, the ideas and, thoughts that you had at 20 are not the same at 30,
Ooh, child.
they're not the same at 40, right?
I mean, let me
I
tell you,
mean,
my 40-year-old self, and I just had this conversation with my trainer the other day, and I was like, 40-year-old Simone is totally different than 30. Because 40-year-old Simone, who just literally just got here, I literally just arrived. I just got to the destination. I just put my bags down.
right.
40-year-old Simone is like, I'm doing everything that I want to do, and I'm not asking any questions about like, is this okay? Like
Mhm.
my confidence level, it's a different feel, and I think that the reason why I feel that way is like, if the life expectancy is almost to 80, then girl, you halfway there. So like I don't have the time. 40-year-old Simone
Mhm.
is totally different than 30-year-old Simone. 30-year-old Simone cared a lot more about everybody else's opinion about it.
Right.
40-year-old Simone is walking into the space like, y'all gonna love me or not, but what I'm about to do is live for Simone. And that's a
Hmm.
freeing space to be.
Yeah, undoubtedly. Same for me. I mean, at 50, that was the notion that people are going to question my decision to kind of walk away and do, the coaching, specifically dating and relationship coaching. But as we get older, and you may have witnessed when you were, talking to folks much older in their 70s and 80s, it's like they really didn't care what you thought.
They don't
They were
care.
going to say their piece. They were going to do what they're going to do. And that's kind of what happens with life. You start to recognize that it really doesn't matter. People are going to say, and, whatever they're going to say, you might as well be happy and do what you think is best for you. And that's really what it comes down to, right? You can't control what others think, so to
Yeah.
speak.
I
Yeah.
agree. And how does empathy, play a part in that? Like, how does empathy? Because now we're having differences. Like right now, like I don't care what you got to say. I mean, not that I am not listening to what I can like
Right.
chew up the meat and spit out the bones because I want to be introspective. But how do you think that empathy plays a part in navigating differences amongst people in their relationships?
Yeah. It plays a huge part. I think the closer your circle, I mean, the closer the inner circle, well, those people you're going to care more about and be, have an empathetic ear as it pertains to, their thoughts and feelings, especially as it pertains to you, right?
Mm.
You're more receptive. Uh, but as it gets broader out, well, social media, I mean, hey, I'm not as empathetic to everyone's comment about Coach Kevin or the disagreements or things like that. But for me and my personal, given what I do now, I think Coach Kev has grown tremendously in that department of empathy, as I mentioned through the training and just life in general. I mean, I think, growing up, where I grew up in the South as a black man, and the things you kind of witness and see, and then you question, but then you start to understand, how other folks may have it, and then why,
Mm-hmm.
you're starting to grapple with it as a young person. And as you grow older, you start to get a sense of, okay, I have a view, I have a take, and I think it shapes, what you do to try to, hopefully, make things better. Um, I think for me, one of the biggest things is, like we talk about intersectionalities, right? So, being a man of color, and if I had a rap sheet, my life would be totally different.
Mm-hmm.
But can I empathize with someone who's been, convicted, and now they got to deal with the life, of that, combined with being a person of color? Well, yeah, that's a whole nother level
Totally
of,
different.
of stuff to handle, right?
Yeah.
Then if you were, let's say if you're gay as well, that might bring a whole nother level of toll and life challenges. And so I think early on, I never thought about that as much, because I was just trying to figure out for me, like how I got to deal with it. But now, once you know, mature, and I think live long enough, you start to, put the shoes on of other folks to see, what it must be like to go through that. And despite some people like to think, boy, we all have choices. Sure, we all have choices, but some of those choices might be impacted by the system itself, right?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So your choices could have been already impacted by the structural, things that exist, right?
Oh,
And so,
absolutely. Yeah, I
yeah,
think that
and so
that's
you
a.
have to make difficult choices, and sometimes you make the wrong choices. And the
Mm-hmm.
question is, should you have empathy and allowing people to have some grace? Because if you make one bad choice and that's the end of it, that's a tough deal.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think of two things. The first being my father, who was a postal worker, right? Modern day Amazon, like, old school, excuse me, old school Amazon, like, and the amount of, people saying going postal, right? The
Mm-hmm.
amount of people that were going in there. And my dad was a very happy cannabis user. Um,
Yeah.
and, and also, unfortunately, suffered from alcohol, alcoholic. And so, I remember having so much judgment in my 20s and my teens about my dad, right? Because I'm like, he is, always doing something to, see me to decompress. My God, now the empathy that I have as being a previous business, I mean, owning a business and understanding people and and I'm on a small scale. Like, I'm not even at the post office. My dad was a manager at the post office. Not even like, I have 10, 12, maybe at the max 15 employees at a time. Whereas my father was dealing with, hundreds of employees. And oh my God, Kev, the conversations I wish I could have with that man right now about and having from an empathetic standpoint, because I understand it now. I understand what he may have been going through. I understand the struggles that he must be facing. And I think there's a level of, when we think about empathy, especially for me in navigating differences or understanding people, we've got to stop being so inflexible to our stance, right? The reason why we're so different, the reason why we all have different perspectives is for us to be able to co-collab, to listen, to hear, and we become a better place. And I think that because we become so narrow-minded sometimes, or how we were raised, or this is absolutely right, as opposed to understanding that maybe there's morally rights and wrongs. Like, I think we can say across the board, sex trafficking, wrong.
Right.
Child pornography, wrong, right? But your politics, maybe there's no right or wrong. It's just a different perspective. You connect with who you connect with. Maybe from a
Right.
religious standpoint, maybe God could be so amazing that he could show himself so differently to everybody differently, right? The idea that it's not just this is the way, this inflexible movement, I think, really hurts people in so many ways. It lacks empathy. And what I have been really working on is understanding that, and I approach conversations with people that I have differences all the time, like, there's no right or wrong, and I don't believe in absolutes. It's no all or nothing, right? You both can exist. And I'm happy to have a seat at the table with you to hear your perspective, because your perspective comes from your history and how you're raised and what your experiences are. And especially as a woman of color, right? For me, it's like my experiences are totally different than, someone else. And I have something to say. My perspective is valid. It matters. And perhaps your understanding, your empathy towards what my plight might be would be very different if you just sat there and listened. So I think we've got to get out of the habit of just standing so hard in our stance about what we believe in, and being more open-minded to the conversations of the collective experience.
Yeah, no doubt, no doubt. And that, I think, if you start to have that approach, boy, you can see how it might be transformative, like transforming our society and creating a more supportive and inclusive, experience. Because right now, boy, it looks, it's very polarized, right?
Yeah.
And everything is, either you're on my team or you're against me, right? And it's not always the case. It's, we're trying to make it very, polarized, and then there's a lot of, I would say, gray in the middle where people can, navigate, but it's impeding our progress to some degree. I feel
I
as a
almost wonder why
country.
people care so much. Like, why be so fixated on it? Listen, I could talk about this subject all day because it's
No
something that
doubt,
I
no
always
doubt.
think about. I'm like,
It's
why does it?
yeah,
Why do you care so much? Like, I remember like somebody was arguing with me about sexuality, and I was like, well, can you please tell me why you care so much? Like, it blows my mind that like you just
right,
care that much. Like, and it
right,
literally does nothing to your day. Like, you're gonna go eat whatever you eat. You're gonna go to your job, but like you're so fixated on this being right or wrong. When why do you
right.
care? Um, I I,
Yeah,
I think I'm probably more liberal in my thought process, but I just wonder if we could start moving into the perspective of loving and learning out of love and handling things literally from a loving perspective. And I'm not talking about because I love something I'm going to go hurt somebody. I'm like, no, like literally, like I don't know. It blows my mind. It blows my mind. And
yeah, no doubt. Well, what you do find too, I mean, it's like if you're on this, this polarization, and you're on one side and there's no empathy for the other side. So it's
yeah.
selective empathy. I'm going to empathize for the causes that, but not see the perspective or try to understand why certain folks may think or believe what they do. And a lot
Or
of it
even
is,
ask the questions of why they
even
think
ask
that.
the questions, have the conversations, but a lot of it is taught. I mean, a lot of it could be cultural, a lot of it is learned, but it may not be serving us well, and that's another question. But we don't take the time to really recognize, what's happening and how someone can have a totally different view from yours,
Yeah.
right? Um, and that's okay, but it's become so extreme now that it's, hey, no need to talk about it. You like this, I like that, therefore we must be sworn enemies by default. I can never support or engage with you as a result. And to the point where we have this scorched earth policy. Before I let you run the stuff, well, I'll burn this down. That's what it
Yeah.
feels like we're getting to, right? It's like, you know what? Not gonna happen. We'll storm the Capitol.
Yeah. I think that
Mm,
we've got to get to a place of where um we've got to get to a place where we just really like chill out, like relax. Like it's not that serious. Like you can be different from me. You can
right.
have a different perspective than me. And that's
Mm-hmm.
still okay. Like, I should never be so infuriated by your perspective that it makes me want to destroy, hurt, or harm. I've got
Right.
to get to a place of self care where I can just say, wow, that's interesting. I can disagree and still get along. Like, I don't, it doesn't have to be an all or nothing thing. I can say that I don't connect to how you feel about that and
Right.
still have dinner with you. I could connect to not understanding your thought process about something and still love you because at the end of the day, both perspectives could be beneficial in some shape or fashion. If my cake only tasted like sugar and there was no flour, there's no butter into it, like I'm not trying to eat just a sugar cake, right? I don't want just sugar. It's just that, right? I need the mixture. I need the ingredients. That's what makes us so vibrant as people and so diverse. Is like I think we're doing a terrible job of eliminating all the differences, or at least trying to, like you said, polarizing the sides so much so that we're missing the beauty in the differences. And
Yeah.
yeah.
You sound
So
like a coach. Great metaphors, Dr.
yeah.
Ellis.
I don't
like a
want to
coach.
keep.
You should be a coach, girl. You be a
Listen,
coach.
I'm just trying to save the world one tooth at a time. And then, like, if I can do that, I'm trying
Well,
to save
people,
you from bad breath. Like, I don't want you to go and your differences be so bad that your breath
right.
is killing that person. Like, I don't want that for you.
Well, you know what they say, a nice smile can, warm and be inviting for others to, to have a conversation. So,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I think we should
we're-
probably smile more too. Like, and if you
right,
can't smile, you know where to find me or his sister, who's also a dentist. So
exactly, exactly. No doubt, no
let
doubt.
let's talk about a little bit of how empathy is so essential to a positive workplace, especially for people who have teams that are trying to lead people who may struggle from a leadership perspective of one either understanding empathy or being introspective to know that they're not really an empathetic person. I'd love to hear kind of like what's the importance of it and then some maybe guides for people who want to start implementing that in pertaining to their leadership styles.
Yeah, tremendous benefits from having, I would call a empathetic culture, for not only the clients, but the employees and the leadership. But it starts with leadership. I mean, people tend to emulate the leader. So if you're creating a level of awareness and understanding and trying to understand perspective of the people that make up your organization, it kind of ripples, kind of the title of this podcast, the ripple effect.
Yeah.
But it increases, employee morale and engagement. People want to, get involved, and I think it reduces turnover. If you know that you are heard and that you matter, and that, hey, I might not look like the boss, act like the boss, be the same sex as the boss, but he's trying to understand my perspective and the things I bring to the table, and empathetic in things that are happening that may impact my ability to work and whatnot. I mean, that goes a long way. Think
Yeah.
about the importance and the power in that. And then you have higher productivity when you're heard and you're welcome and your perspective is understood, and you can engage with leadership to talk about things freely. People tend to perform better. People tend to feel secure.
Yeah.
And when you're secure in any relationship, be it professional or work, it's a lot easier to be your best.
Yeah. Yeah.
Bottom line. So definitely. But it's not to say, hey, because you're empathetic that, it's about, being taken advantage of or not. I mean, no, we're not saying that at all. I mean, I think empathy is really seeking to understand, to connect, and be supportive of someone given, their situation, right? Their perspective, because we don't do that at times. We can see our view, and that's pretty much it. A
Yeah.
lot of men, we see the male view. This is what's happening, but put yourself in a woman's perspective and see, like I watched a documentary to give you an example on the fight for, equal pay in the soccer profession with the teams, and to see what they went through and just to see that. And that's what storytelling does for us. Can present that view a lot easier for you to say, wow, this is what it feels like
Yeah.
to, go out and give your heart to something and then not have the equivalent in facilities and pay and sometimes like it seems so obvious. Why aren't the men pushing? And it's like, what are they holding up for, right? And they're still, they have to go to court. They have to sue them. It just blows your mind. But they probably weren't able to empathize. The leaders that ran the soccer federation, or I forgot the name of the agency for
Yeah.
U.S. soccer. It's amazing. Blows your mind.
Yeah, and I think that it's tough, especially being a woman, that you do hear those biases, those gender biases so often, age biases.
Mm-hmm.
Like we were talking about this earlier before we got on the podcast. Like 40 for a woman is totally different than 40 for a man. Like just not and even understanding the empathy, like premenopausal, going through things that are changes, things that you can't even.
Yes.
Sometimes my PMS, I'm like, what the hell is going on? And I can't. Do you understand what it feels like to go crazy in your mind and not be able to articulate why you were going crazy? And like the empathy, as opposed to making a joke about it, like women are really hormonally going through changes. And so, 40 looks totally different than 30 for women. And it's crazy because for men, it's like, well, hey, she's just having a moment. I'm like, this is a thing going on, and I can't agree with you more. Whether it's sports, whether it's profession, whether it's personal, whether it's hormonal, it's a lot of things. And I think that if we can take yourself out of your own shoes and really, really try to walk just for a second in someone else's perspective, it makes a big difference. And at least for me, some of the things that I notice when I'm dealing with like my employees or my team, I struggle with this because as a owner, very young, I opened my own office at 26, and I thought because I was a dentist or a leader, like I'm naturally a leader, and I found it very hard to connect to people because it was get it done, get it done, get it done. And what I realized was I was losing staff left and right. And I decided to take a year to focus purely on not learning any new dentistry techniques, but leadership. And what I found out was I was lacking the balance between how to connect to my employees and my team without getting too much information because I am an empath, right? So when I know too much about your life, I can't run a business properly because I'm making decisions based off of what's going on in your personal life, right? Like, oh, well, Susie can't come to work today because baby daddy ain't here and da 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 da. And
Right.
I'm hurting my patience behind it because I'm too empathetic. But maybe understanding what Susie goes through on a day to day basis in her home, which is different from me knowing what the details of are, but maybe helping her in ways to either get out that situation or being more understanding of, hey, her child care may not be like someone who can afford it. So giving her 10 to 15 minutes grace to go get her child and providing a space where possibly the kid can come to work for a little bit of time that doesn't impact patient flow. Like these are things that walking that line really helped me. And so I think for providers, doctors, anybody who else is listening to the podcast, thinking
Yeah.
about the ways to put yourself in someone's shoes in a balance is important, you know?
Yeah. That all makes sense. I think, as a practitioner like yourself, you kind of have the vision that, boy, I'm gonna get into this profession, open this office, and I'm gonna do a lot of chairside procedures, and
Yeah.
clients are gonna be happy, and employees are gonna be happy.
It's the American
Um,
dream.
it's the
What?
American dream, and the money's gonna flow, and everybody's gonna come and see me. But boy, it's
Jay-Z was
a brutal
wrong.
reality when you
Right.
start working with people. And I used to say this. I mean, boy, my job would be easy if I didn't have to deal with people,
Oh my
because
gosh.
people are going to bring challenges to the table. They're going to bring their personal things sometimes into the work environment. And
Yeah.
you being the boss, you being the leader in the organization, has to figure out, boy, how do we manage and keep this thing moving? Because ultimately, I'm here to serve clients, but also you're here to serve people, which includes your employees,
Yeah.
right? They want to be in an environment where they can be respected and, like I said, heard and matter so that they can do their jobs. And you're trying to enable that.
Yeah.
And part of it is trying to, hey, how can I foster a culture of, empathy and understanding? Okay, what will help to help you do your job well,
Yeah.
ultimately, right? How can I help you do your job? Because if something that we're doing or not doing or facilitating, but like you said, situationally, people have challenges with daycare and all kinds of things. And it's hard to keep good people. Like people are jumping ship. Like the
Oh
hygienist
gosh.
today is like, I got another offer tomorrow. I got to roll, then you're stuck, right? But I'd always caution that if trying to treat your people well, not only in compensation, but you know, the non-compensation areas, the personal aspects and the empathy, as we've been talking about, makes it harder for them to jump, right?
Yeah.
Because everyone is not doing that. There's a lot of situations where you're grinding and nobody really values or respects or understands what it is you may be going through. And there's a lot of stressors at work and then outside of work that are taking tolls on people that are unimaginable.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
yeah, I get to see it because they come to the coach and they're like, I can't keep it up. I can't do it.
Yeah, I was gonna say, how does this really impact dating? Since you really work with people in the dating, so I'm so curious to know, like,
It impacts it royally, majorly, because a lot of things that are happening in our professional lives can translate into our personal lives. So some of the relationship dynamics at work and how we handle things, we're handling the same way in our personal lives, and it's not really helping.
mm,
So the thoughts and ideas, as I mentioned, people always ask, Coach Kev, what are the themes or what are the tips? And so, the big themes a lot of times is we can be our worst enemies. We're the saboteurs in our lives, right? We want to be the stars, but at the same time, we're the villains, right? We
mm,
we we sabotage ourselves, and some of that is with the thoughts or ideas that are not serving us well. and the little voices telling us we can't do it, from imposter syndrome to fear to whatever it may be. Like, I don't deserve to have a love life or the person I desire. So that's a big one. Number two, I think we, so dating is very personal and very nuanced. And what I mean by that is, everyone has a perspective. Your mom, your dad, your best friend. The internet seems to
Yes.
be a big challenge for people. Social media, everybody's telling me what I should do. Now, unless they said, hey, for you in this situation with this, and that, because it's so nuanced. If you're a divorced person with so many children, and then you're trying to do this and a job and this and that, and that's impacting your dating, well, you go to an article, it's not, if it doesn't
It's only
have
telling
your
part of
name
the
on it,
story, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
it's not one size fits all. People just assume, well,
Yeah.
it said that, I got to do that. And I'm like, all right. Or your girlfriend or your best friend or your guy friend tells you, you know what, that's not a problem for me, therefore it shouldn't be for you.
Mm.
Not so fast.
I was one of those girlfriends. I remember because I got
Yeah,
married so young and I was so just naive, right? And I
right.
would be like, I mean, it can't be this hard. Like, it's so many men out here. Like, what are you talking about?
Exactly.
And then I get single and I'm like, wait,
Right.
what were y'all talking about?
Exactly. Quality versus quantity. There's a lot of quantity,
Oh my
but
gosh.
quality, and finding someone that meets your, has values aligned, and if you want, to be equally yoked in certain aspects. I mean, there's a lot of things to consider, but those are like the major themes: the self-sabotage and trying to adhere to advice or perspectives that may not be right for you. And so we're trying to conform. And that's really a big thing of the societal pressure and the culture and even family, telling us we got to have. And for some people, believe it or not, singlehood may be the best thing for them. I
You
mean, that
what
is
did you just
okay.
say? Oh my God. Could that be a novel idea that you being single is not the end of the world?
Hey, but you would think not. Our government gives you tax breaks if you got kids and families and so forth. So no, singlehood is, something's wrong with you. You say, hey, I'm single. People ask, what's wrong with you? Why can't you get a man? Why can't you get a girl? Like and then the question ought to be, what's right with me? I mean, like, hey,
Wow. I love
um,
that. What's right with
yeah,
me? Like, what am I? There's
right
so
with
many
me,
great
right?
things. I love that.
Exactly. So that's also, I mean, I think, we put pressure on ourselves to have outcomes. And the challenge also is that what you envision achieving, your goal, may not happen when or how you think it will.
Can
It
you
may
say
not
that
manifest.
louder for the people in the back? Because, I had a goal this morning when I woke up. I'm not going to tell
Right.
you. You know what my goal was?
I don't know. To have this podcast.
Nah, it was to win the $1 billion lottery. And then I saw again, it was my goal. And
It was
like,
well, all right. Well,
somebody in California. So can you find that person for?
it happened right here in Los
I
Angeles, down.
hate y'all. Y'all keep doing it because wasn't the other billion?
Another, I think that was the 2 billion was in Ohio, but we've had some other billions. And my dad texted me this morning and said, "Hey, did you win it?" And I said, well, "Let me check my tickets." But nope, didn't
No,
win.
so that was my goal today. And anyways, sidebar, I just really felt like the universe, I manifested really hard. I was like, all the stars will align, and I didn't have
Yeah,
any.
well, that makes sense. But how and when it may not manifest how and when you expect, right?
Lord.
So that's the goal. And sometimes we already have a preconceived notion that
Yeah.
I'm gonna meet the girl or meet the guy. We're gonna do this. We're gonna fall in love. Blah, blah, blah. That may happen, but it may not. And being open to what may happen in the universe, taking shape, is something that I try to help people do.
Do,
Like,
do you think more people
we're
are
going
going
to
to
get to
stay?
the goal.
Do you think more people
Go ahead.
will probably be single than married?
In the future,
Yeah.
potentially. I mean, the way things are headed, I mean, the singlehood is rising. People are getting later, waiting later in life to get married sometimes as well. We've seen the numbers and the demographic shift. But yeah, the people that are single now through divorce or never married has tremendously grown.
Yeah.
Uh,
And so for people who are really desperately wanting that to be a part of their life, do you coach them away from that, or do you coach them to that, or you just coach them to just be okay with where they are?
Good question. Well, I coach them for what they want. So it's really discovering, what do I truly want? And if you truly want to be in a relationship, well, then we're going to coach you and help you achieve that. And if you don't want a relationship, well, that's not too hard to do. I mean, we can keep you out of one if you want to get out of one. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
that's a plan as well. But no, I mean, each client comes with their own agenda. I don't push my agenda on them like, girl, you should be single. No,
So you're not a
I'm really
Kevin.
helping them.
So this is not Kevin Samuels that I'm talking to. Thank you.
No, no, no. Well, you know what? Speaking of which, I mean, the late Kevin Samuels, I mean, we share the first name, but I literally probably became a coach part to Kevin Samuels because I didn't know about the brother. People might send me clips at the time, and I'm like, okay, this is purely entertainment. This can't be real. And they're
Yeah,
like, nah,
yeah.
he's real. And I thought it was quite, like, this is crazy. Why are people pushing it? Why you keep sending it? Don't send this to me. This is buffoonery. But ultimately, partly why I became a coach and chose to focus on this domain was that I think there's a different perspective that says, hey, it's not about being chauvinistic or being, arrogant or whatever he was purporting at the time, but it's just, about understanding who you are first and
Mm.
foremost, building that awareness, working on yourself so that it becomes that much easier to recognize and connect with the one you're supposed to.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're just aimlessly shooting and figuring it out. And we know online dating can be challenging, meeting people in person can be challenging. And then they got to like you too, right? And then you got to get to know and connect and develop, that relationship and evolve. There's a lot of things in that process, right?
How do you
But the
feel
first
like
part,
AI is impacting dating? I know this is like sidebar, but I'm curious. I've had this conversation a couple of times, and how do you feel like AI is impacting the dating world?
AI. When you say AI, you mean artificial intelligence, right?
Yeah. Uh huh.
Right. And impacting, you want to know how it's impacting or will it impact?
Well, it's gonna impact for sure because I can't begin to tell you how many profile pictures I've seen with people who I'm like, that does look like you. Like that's totally you. It just isn't you, but it's totally you.
Right. Fair enough. Yeah, AI is definitely proliferating right now and in so many ways. And um, from a dating standpoint, right, you can have AI bots, respond for you or create
Mm-hmm.
questions for you or pretty much engage with someone until you meet or help you get the phone number and then you meet and then you're getting now the real person. But up to that point, it was a bot representing them, right? So that
Yeah.
is a little scary in itself. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think, online dating in a sense has kind of made us very disposable or dismissive. I mean, we can just swipe. Swipe culture has made it like,
Yeah.
hey, I can have another date tonight if you don't want to, engage in how I want to. It's very quick. You can ghost. It's made a lot of things tougher, I think, to date. But at the flip side, it's brought people access to a lot of other people they may not have met or, I guess, seen, digitally or electronically. But the thought that more is better may not be the best thing either, because, you know, trying to pick and decide and focus can be a challenge for some, right?
Yeah, it's like the Cheesecake Factory menu. Like
Yeah,
I don't know what type of cheesecake I want because it is so many cheesecakes and they all look
right,
good. And this cheesecake has this and this cheesecake has this. Yeah, I
right.
think we've gotten, I love what you said as far as being a very dismissive society. I know for myself personally when I was on apps, and more so because I, I like to travel, but I'm not necessarily like, I'm not a person that likes to go out. And I was finding a hard time meeting people. Like I wasn't going to date my patients per se. Like that was not, acceptable. And then also, when you have a certain type of profession, which maybe I was overthinking it, but I was like, okay, I can't be seen at certain things in certain places because my patients are there, and like I just kind of didn't want that part of my life to be always so easily accessible. I definitely think
Right.
it's tough. So my question to you also is that like for people professionally or personally, like what are some, I guess, ways to encourage or inspire empathy, connection with others through our own actions? Like, what could I do personally to get more of an empathetic connection or interpersonal connection personally? Like, what could I do professionally and personally?
Yeah, very good question. What can you literally do? Um, I think the first part is, recognizing where you are, uh, personally and professionally, and, what are you trying to achieve, right? That's usually the first step. So, if you're talking from a personal standpoint, being more empathetic as you connect with folks, it's really looking for opportunities to be empathetic, if you will. So, going out and, meeting folks to the extent that you can, different folks, all types of folks, and,
Yeah.
listening and hearing, their story or their perspective on things. And then, instead of just automatically thinking about the counter or what you're going to say, it's really being present and putting yourself in their shoes in that moment. So that
Mm.
practice right then and there. So it's, taking advantage of situations. It's following up to see, what can you do to support whatever it may be. If it's a cause or an action or, I'll give you an example. I got friends here in LA. I'm not in entertainment by no means. I'm just a coach, but I meet people that are writers. And so I was at a party on Saturday and I met a writer and talked about what it must be like to be on strike now, right?
Yeah.
We're sharing. And then literally, they're like, I got picket signs in the car. And I'm like, well, given what I understand and what I've read and what I recognize to be the dispute, I wouldn't mind going out and picketing it if I need to, right? And just really saying, okay, that must be, difficult to know that
Yeah.
we talked about AI and how that can replace them in the writer's room, right? You might
Yeah.
not need a group of 8 writers to do a show or 10 writers. You could have one or two and the rest
Yeah.
be AIs, but even the AI might not have the cultural and the perspective for the diversity of the writers. So
Yeah.
that would be a good example of getting out and connecting in the personal aspect. But in the professional, no doubt, it's you as the leader of your organization, looking for ways to say, hey, um, I'm gonna lead by example and demonstrating empathy for not only the clients or patients as situations arise, because it's the single mom and something happens with the kids at school and this and can't make the appointment. How do we show some empathy and making things easier for her to be able to correct or do something to support in that emergency situation. And I'm sure you guys do that as well. And then for employees as well, looking for ways that you can encourage them to support each other by you supporting them. And it has a ripple effect. They're going to start to say, oh, okay, Dr. Ellis is, being kind and showing empathy and trying to understand what it is to be, in my shoes or to be me and what I'm dealing with, because it's somehow, at points in time, we don't really fully grasp what, other people are going through. I mean, we are
Yeah.
already going through our own. It's hard to do sometimes because you got your own stuff that you're going through.
Yes.
And then to stop and say, hey, and you see it a lot in our personal relationships, right? It's like clients will come to me and I do couple sessions as well. And what happens when your partner is going through it? And they might only have like 20% to give the relationship after a long day. And then you only got 20% because you had a long day, but you're expecting both to support each other in that situation. Well, you barely have enough to kind of get
Support
home and,
yourself. Right.
and support yourself. And that's where you have to have, hey, some empathy about they're going through it, but I want to show them how I'm going through it. But then recognize, you know what? Maybe you only got 20% and I got 20%. We may need you to just chill. And
Yes.
you have a glass of wine or something to cope, meditate. I do my thing, and we just not expect the other person to be there because both of us don't have it.
Oh yeah,
And
I agree.
those days happen. Now, other days you got your 80 and he got 20 or vice versa, then you can be there. You can support your partner and engage. But there are days when neither one of you have it, but the expectation is you will be there.
Yeah.
And that is tough. But to recognize, to share and communicate openly and honestly and hopefully understand and be empathetic to that. You know what? Sounds like you had the same thing I had, maybe even worse. So can we just chill and allow ourselves the space with the hope that we can be better tomorrow and do better.
I love it. I love it. So we're gonna go into our last session, which is like my rapid fire questions. This is more
Fair
about
enough.
you as a person. So get ready
All right.
because my guns is blazing. I'm about to hit you with a lot of fast questions. First things first, sex or chocolate?
Oh, sex,
Ski or snowboard?
ski,
Michelle or Barack Obama?
Michelle.
Mountains or beach?
Beach.
Do you have a sister or a brother? Do you have a brother too?
Oh, brother.
Sister or brother?
Sister or brother? Sister.
I love it. Pancakes or waffles?
Pancakes.
High or low?
High.
What type of high? I'm kidding.
Yeah. A natural high, I
Natural
guess.
high, natural high, natural.
Natural.
Nike.
These are easy questions, Dr.
Yeah,
Ellis. Come
this
on.
is good. Okay, Nikes or Adidas?
Uh, wow. Nikes.
Okay, Michael or Kobe?
Michael.
Michael or LeBron?
Michael.
Oh, he's a Michael fan for sure. Um,
Caveat though, I did have a call with my dad yesterday, and we spoke about LeBron, and I had to, LeBron. I truly believe LeBron stands for a lot, and I think he's more engaging, more
yeah,
community driven. Michael wasn't as accessible
yeah.
as I see LeBron in the LA area and around, Ohio and so forth. I mean,
I think that
so
the times are different though. Like it wasn't. I don't think it was meant.
right.
Like he wasn't supposed to be accessible, right? Like
Right, no doubt. Different times as well. But yeah, I do like LeBron as a person overall,
I
more so.
agree. He seems
And
he's.
Kobe too, but LeBron more so.
They seem more like. Well, regardless if it's true or not, from what the perception is, I agree with you. LeBron seems more family oriented. He's into his
Hmm.
wife. He's into
Hmm.
his team, and
Yeah.
yeah, I agree. Well,
But just
Kev,
basketball, I'm going MJ.
you going MJ all day? I mean, he
Yeah.
after I watched what was
Last
it?
Dance,
Huh?
The Last Dance.
Last Dance, and then I watched the Redeem Team, and I was like, just to be these type of guys on this level is, I mean,
Yeah.
it's just kind of, it's epic. So,
Yeah.
Kev, this has been wonderful. I really feel like I'm leaving this episode with, a lot of thoughts to take home, a lot of introspection for sure, and I'm knowing that my viewers will also be feeling the same. If they want to hire you virtually or go to Cali or even when you're in Houston, where can they find you?
Yeah. Well, I appreciate the kind words. This has been a benefit and to share and to engage with you. And I can be found, yeah, definitely in Houston. I'm always there because I still have work there, and I babysit a lot for my sister,
I
as you
love that. But
probably
those kids are pretty
you
good.
may.
They're pretty old now. Like they don't have to have like right.
Uh,
They need you there still.
I wouldn't say babysit now, but I oversee and make sure everybody needs to, everybody's where they have to
No
be,
one is
right?
burning down the house and ordering a
No,
billion
burning,
dollars
yeah,
of DoorDash.
exactly. That my sister and brother-in-law can come back from their well-deserved vacations and excursions, and everything is still in order.
Yeah, I
Uh,
love that.
So, I do that, but I split time. I'm in LA quite a bit, but I'm on social media. I do have a website. The name of my company, by the way, is called From Casual to Serious,
Okay.
all spelled out. From Casual to Serious.com. That's my handle on social media for Instagram. I think no, LinkedIn is probably Kevin Thibodeaux,
Okay.
and I think Facebook, I went back to Kevin Thibodeaux as well,
Okay.
just because I have way more followers from my previous professions. But yeah, from casual to serious, you can find me. I also do 30-minute free sessions to kind of, get to know a client and see if we're a good fit, see what they're trying to accomplish or what challenges they want to overcome. Um, and that's kind of how we start. But yeah, it's been great.
Yeah, you are going to be, I'm thinking, uber successful if you're not already. You're already successful because this is a problem that is completely going on and I don't see it going anywhere. But thank you for continuing to, do your work, do the part that really helps to guide, people to become better humans. Because at the end of the day, I think that that's what the conversation is. Whether you're single, whether you're in a relationship, whether you're struggling in your personal or professional relationships, this ripple effect, these one small changes have such a big impact overall. And so thank you for your time. I don't take it lightly that you shared it. I appreciate it. And I'm going to text your sister right after this and be like, your brother is so freaking dope. How did I not know this? Thank you so much again. And guys, this is Beyond the Chair. Please do me a favor. If you enjoyed this podcast, please like, subscribe, and also review it because we want to make sure that we're having interesting and engaging dialogue but I also want to know what you guys want to hear more about. So be sure to share this with any of your friends or family that you feel like could be beneficial. And guys, I will see you back here next time on Beyond the Chair.